Hello and welcome to the Convex Conversation on location at RAF Waddington, home to the famous aerobatic team, the Red Arrows. I'm here to meet the team's new officer commanding, fast jet pilot Wing Commander Sasha Nash. The Reds have just announced they'll be displaying 7 jets this year, as they did in their debut season back in 1965, rather than the traditional 9 Red Hawks. The iconic aircraft is approaching the end of service. Sasha is a former frontline Tornado pilot. She completed 2 operational tours of Afghanistan and took part in exercises alongside other air forces around the world. She's in charge of the 150-strong team of pilots, engineers and support staff, known as the Reds and Blues. On her most recent posting, Sasha was part of the RAF's display wing, working alongside the Battle of Britain memorial flight. The BBMF keeps priceless, historic aircraft, such as Spitfires, Hurricanes and a Lancaster bomber, airworthy, to preserve our national heritage and inspire new generations. Now she's in charge of the Royal Air Force aerobatic team, whose close formations and breathtaking manoeuvres thrill crowds in their millions. Sasha, congratulations on your new job. What a job it is.
Well, thank you. And I'm delighted to be here and to be chatting with you.
We are sitting on the threshold of the runway right now, so I think it's only right to point out that if we hear the roar of the jets, you've got 3 Hawks actually training right outside the window right now.
We do. We're in the middle of winter training at the moment, which means that we've got a steady rotation 2 to 3 times a day of the pilots going up to practice their displays. So yes, there may be a bit of noise outside the window at various points.
How do you feel about taking charge of the Reds, such an iconic team and loved really all over the world?
What you probably can't hear, but you can see, is the big beaming smile I have on my face. And I've had that pretty much constantly since I took over about 6 or 7 weeks ago. For me, I'm just absolutely blown away, excited, and just chuffed to bits to have this opportunity being put in front of me, and very much looking forward to what the next 3 years has to offer.
What was the response, Sasha, when you were asked to take on this role?
The interview for the position is done with some very senior members of the Air Force. And I received a phone call probably about 2 or 3 hours after that, where our 2-star rang and said, "Would you like to be the boss of the Red Arrows?" And I said, "Oh, so I would very much like to be that." And politely put the phone down and did a very excitable little dance.
And what about your family too? Are they very excited about this session?
Yeah, my family are incredibly supportive. It actually happened that on the day I received the news, my parents were over. So I got to go back and I got to tell them, I got to tell my husband. And then actually it was a little bit closer to me taking over, because we had to embargo the news for a little bit, that I told my 2 children about what my new job was going to be.
How old are your children, Sasha, and what was their response?
So they are 7 and 3, and they were very excited, I think would be fair to say. They obviously had some questions. Certainly my eldest has a lot of questions, and my youngest, he's just very excited, and he actually loves all things to do with flying as well.
Have they actually seen the Red Arrows, or have you shown them some clips on television of what they do, because they're at that such young, excitable age?
So they have been to air shows and they have seen the Red Arrows displaying already, and they've both been very excited to see that. And then they also saw parts of the news coverage when I took the position on as well, which I think was quite an interesting thing for them to see their mum on the news, on the TV, but they seem very excited by it.
Oh, I'm sure they've got a very, very cool mum. What was day one like at Waddington when you walked in your new position?
Day one was just a whole breadth of feelings. The positive thing was, because I was coming from a job within the display wing, was that I spent the last 2 years in this building. In fact, I moved 5 meters down the corridor to my new office. So I had that advantage that I was coming in and I knew the very impressive and professional people that we have on the team already. It also meant that I knew the hierarchy. I know the station at RAF Waddington and the people there. And I was already working on a lot of the high-level projects that we do as part of the team. So for that side, it made it a lot easier stepping into the role. But then it was also stepping into a brand new role in command of 150 people, doing an incredible job. And the last 6 weeks has been really focusing on understanding the people that we have on the squadron and getting to know them and just understanding everybody, because for me, people are the absolute important thing.
People are key, and you have got a wonderful team of people here. Obviously, not just the pilots, but the people that look after logistics, the support staff, the engineers. You've got a lot of challenge ahead, and I imagine pretty exciting times as well ahead.
Exactly. We've got a breadth of personnel, and people often see the 9 red aircraft in the sky and the pilots associated, but the volume of talented personnel who support those aircraft getting in the sky is massive. You've got 9 pilots, you've got a squadron of 150 people, and that covers such a range of people. That's our engineers, that's our support, that's the photographers who take the amazing photos and videos that you see out on social media. We have our PR, we have the ops teams. There's such a variety of people from so many different backgrounds which make up the team. And I just feel really lucky to be able to lead them.
So Sasha, the display this season is going to look a bit different, isn't it? Tell me more.
It is. So this season is going to be a different number of aircraft in the display. So whereas in recent years you've seen the trademark 9, we will be displaying as a 7 this year. And that's for a number of reasons. It's primarily because we're approaching the end of service date for the Hawk. The Hawk is a wonderful aircraft that has been around and served for many, many years. And we want to ensure that we can get displays out until we go out of service. And one of the things that we need to do in order to do that is decrease the number of aircraft that we put into the display so that we can make sure that there's enough spares to go around, to make sure that the very complex engineering patterns that go into it are fully able to maintain the longevity of the aircraft. What it means, though, is that because we are aware that we are doing this, the team and the team leader have really focused on how that display is going to look. And we're really excited about the display this year. There's some new maneuvers coming in. It's very exciting, and it's really tailored towards there being 7 aircraft. And we're very much looking forward to getting out onto the road and out into the display season and being able to demonstrate that.
And sometimes will we still see the classic Diamond 9? I'm thinking of things like flypaths. Will you still use 9 aircraft for that?
Absolutely. We fully intend to use 9 aircraft for high-profile flypasts. So when we fly past the King for the King's birthday flypast or other events of that nature, we still plan for 9 aircraft to be in the sky, trailing the trademark red, white and blue, and thundering up the Mall as everybody has seen for many years.
And I'd imagine having 7 jets is going to give you a different creative feel altogether. We often are lucky, aren't we, to have new manoeuvres each season, but 7 brings a whole new challenge and perhaps some really exciting manoeuvres that obviously we've never seen before.
It definitely does. And Red 1 has done an exceptional job with the rest of the team at looking at how that new display is going to look so that we can really utilize being that 7 and yes, make it absolutely an exciting, a dynamic and a fantastic display, which is what everybody expects from the Red Arrows.
Aerobatic display teams around the world, many of them are revisiting the aircraft that they currently use for similar reasons as to the Hawk. The Hawk's getting much older now. What do you need when you're looking at a replacement aircraft? What do you need from that fast jet?
The Hawk is a fantastic aircraft because of the way it enables the team to maneuver, the fact that it's, in terms of a logistic footprint, can move around the country because we move around from place to place multiple times a day, all over the place during the summer. And so we'd be looking for an aircraft that supports what we already do at the moment.
You walked into this room today, Sasha, in your green flying suit. You've got your, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a vest that's got the Diamond 9. Slightly out of breath because you've just been flying Tell me about being back in a Hawk, because I presume that you've flown Hawks before, perhaps as part of your training, but I'm guessing you haven't flown a Red Hawk until now.
So I first learnt to fly the Hawk in about 2007 when I came through flying training. And as you say, that was the Black Hawk that we utilised in many different areas at the time. And then more recently, so in my previous job, I was what we call rear seat qualified. And so I could go back up in the back seat for displays, for flying, which I've been doing. But actually today was going up in the front seat as part of my re-qualifying, because as part of my role as the OC, I take the spare aircraft around where it's required. And so getting myself re-qualified on the aircraft is a vital part of that, and a very enjoyable part too.
What was it like stepping into the cockpit of a Red Arrow?
It was really exciting to be back in the cockpit. I've had the benefits of doing a number of simulator sorties. So we have our simulator up at RAF Valley, and that's a fantastic training environment where I could go through and practice my checks and practice all the various things that we do when we learn to fly the aircraft. But there's nothing like actually getting into the aircraft for the first time and everything actually being real. When I took off earlier, I had a grin on my face. It was a hard work sorting. Flying takes up full concentration, and I can certainly feel it now that my brain has been working hard, but in a positive way. And it's really, really good to be back flying in the front cockpit.
At this stage, do you still have somebody in the back while you're just familiarising yourself with a Red Arrow?
Yes, one of our instructors. So within the display wing, we have a couple of instructors. And so one of those was up with me today. So he was teaching me the return to flying syllabus.
And you'll be flying spare jets, presumably, but also will there be any opportunity, sometimes depending on who's available and personnel, to fly maybe in that Diamond 9 on the fly pass that we all know and love for things like the King's birthday?
So the Diamond 9 fly pass, that's all done by the display pilots 1 to 9. And we don't do a substitution process effectively, because the skills that each pilot hones through the 7 months of winter training are so specific that we can't take one person out and put one person in. So actually, in terms of the display, if somebody was poorly for a day, then we can still display with one number down effectively. Any more than that, then unfortunately it can't go ahead, because we have to at all times consider the safety aspects, and that's why you can't move people around. So actually those jets that you see either up doing the display or doing those big fly pasts, that's Reds 1 to 9.
Every officer commanding, I would imagine, wants to make their mark. And you haven't been here very long yet, and you're still getting to grips with all the different personalities. But what changes or developments do you see, Sasha, moving forward? What would you like to bring to this team with this opportunity?
One of the main things that's going to happen during my tenure is us progressing towards the new aircraft and how that transition is going to happen. And that ranges from the how do we transition and learn to fly a new aircraft? What will the display look like? To what's the impact on the people? I think people are key in everything we do. And so for me, a lot of, I imagine, the next few years is going to be a real focus on not just managing people, but supporting everybody as we move towards this transition, so that we move forward as a team. We are one team, and we move forward to that transition together.
And just explain for us why these beautiful, iconic Hawks will eventually, in the near future, I imagine, need replacing. They're quite old beauties.
Old beauty is a lovely name for them, and they are. We've had the Hawks around for a long time. I came through my flying training on them, and that was just under 20 years ago or so. And as with everything, and as with previous aircraft who've got to that part in their life, they are getting older. And our engineers do an incredible job of maintaining them, and maintaining them to the point that we launched most of the entirety of our fleet a number of times a day, which is a very niche thing for what we do comparatively to other areas. But the aircraft's getting old. If you compared it to an old classic car, the more you do with them, the more you look after them. But there comes a point where the old beauty will naturally need replacing with a new beauty.
You don't just potter around the skies in them. What kind of stress are they under? When we watch one of your breathtaking routines, that's a lot of pressure on that aircraft, isn't it?
So one of the big things is the levels of G-forces and the impact on the engine as the engine is being moved around to facilitate what is required. That is all very closely monitored. Red One, so the team leader, the display, everything you see, that is everything that he has come up with in his head. And he works that with the engineers as well, so that what the output of the display is more sympathetic in terms of how we look after the aircraft, while still seeing that world-class performance when we're displaying.
Exciting times that during your tenure, we will possibly see a new aircraft replace the Red Hawk, but also is sustainability at the top of your list as well as we move forward trying to protect the planet?
Absolutely. And we were really pleased as the Reds last year to have the opportunity to utilise both sustainable aviation fuel and hydrotreated vegetable oil in both the smoke system and the fuel system in the aircraft. And actually it was the King's Birthday Flyfast last year where this was utilised fully. And I think anyone who saw that would see that out the window, it didn't make any difference to flying the aircraft. But what it did make the difference to is that sustainability. And that was a bit of a turning point. And we're now looking at how we take that forward as we move forward.
Growing up in Lincolnshire, I grew up on the Red Arrows. They'd often train, we train here now at Waddington, but at Scampton and over Cleethorpes Beach and all where I grew up. Did you like them as a child?
I did. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who maybe doesn't aspire, but everybody certainly knows who the Red Arrows are. And actually for me, I developed an interest in aviation at about the age of 6, which seems very young. And I'm not sure exactly what sparked it. But I know that I used to go to air shows, I used to see the aircraft, and at the age of 6, I declared I wanted to be a fast jet pilot. The minor snag at the time was that females weren't allowed to do that. The first female who came through fast jets came through the mid-90s. So I was well on my way to senior school by that point. And I do still remember when the first lady came through, because for me, that was the green light. My aspirations could actually be something that would be possible to achieve. And then from there, I've just been very lucky with the opportunities that have been presented. And I'm very much a believer of grasping those opportunities. And that's through a myriad of different pathways led me to where I am now.
And did you join the RAF, Sasha, as soon as you left school or university?
So after university, because I knew that I wanted to join, I applied for a sixth form scholarship, which I received, and then a university bursary as well. So I was lucky to have a place with the Air Force, but I could still go off and do my studies at university. I joined the University Air Squadron and then completed the first stage of my flying training whilst also doing my university studies, and then joined the Air Force after university.
As you got closer to that dream and ambition coming true, what was it, do you think, about fast jets that really appealed and made you want to become a fast jet pilot?
I've been asked this question a lot, and I really wish I had a beautiful, eloquent answer to it, other than a lot of it is the feeling, which is really hard to put into words. What I really enjoy about flying is the focus. I like the teamwork. So when I used to fly on the Tornado, it was a pilot and a navigator. And so you were at that A-level peak rapport and teamwork, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really enjoy that you're there to do an output, whether that's coming through flying training or whether that's instructing or whether it's on the front line or whether it's learning how to fly a Red Arrow. There is always a very clear and definite output. And I really enjoy it. And I've never been able to find the exact words to describe it.
What does it feel like when you're up there in your fast jets? Can you describe that perhaps freedom feeling that it brings? It's really difficult as a layperson to imagine, but I can see how you light up, that it's a real thrill to be able to do that.
It is. And when you're flying, a lot of the time you are incredibly focused and busy on what it is that you're doing, ranging from when I used to instruct. So you're focusing on running the sortie and how to ensure that you're teaching the student to the best effect, to the front line where you're thinking about the operational output. But occasionally, if you're in a transit somewhere, you get that moment of just looking around, looking out the window as you do. And on a day like today, you can see for miles and miles around you, and just having that moment of, I very much enjoy where my office is right now.
What challenges did you face as a female fast jet pilot? Because we've got to be honest that you're a bit of a rare breed for a number of reasons, not least because females weren't allowed to be fast jet pilots. When 6-year-old Sasha dreamt of doing that, it's still seen as very much, unfortunately, a man's world, isn't it? So what was that path like for you?
So I've never experienced any differences. My view, this is Sasha's view on it, is that I'm not a female pilot. I'm a pilot who happens to be female. I'm not the female boss of the Red Arrows. I'm the boss of the Red Arrows. Going through training, flying, it doesn't make a difference. The jet does not care whether you're male, female, what colour your hair is, how tall you are, within limits. It just cares if you can fly. And that's how I've always approached going through flying training. And I've never seen myself as any different. And I don't think anyone else has ever seen me as any different either. I've just been fully integrated into all the squadrons that I've been on. And that's why for me, taking this step into this role was a natural transition. I didn't have that thought of, oh, I'm a female. It was the next step. This is a job that is open for applications. I have all of the requisite background to be able to be eligible for the role. And that's why I put myself forward.
And do you wish that more women would consider this route and that we might see more females in? I completely agree with what you said. You're a highly qualified tornado pilot, qualified instructor. You've been to the front line. And that's why on purpose we didn't say in the introduction the first female officer commanding, because that really should not be the focus. You are absolutely the right person for the job. But given that there are far fewer women in the positions that you've had throughout your career, do you hope this might inspire others to follow that path too?
I think if me being in this job can inspire anyone to do anything, so not just be a fast jet pilot and do that, but actually I've been lucky enough to achieve my dreams. And if somebody sees that and can take inspiration from that and believes in themselves that they can go do something, then quite honestly, I'll finish the tour and be absolutely chuffed to bits, because I think that's really important. And I've certainly seen people and had role models that I've seen going through, and I might be able to have an impact and make a difference. And that's such a privilege.
You're having a positive impact on my 16-year-old son who's listening to this interview today. So we can definitely tick that box immediately, I think. Through your career, you were posted to 31 Squadron at RAF Marham. Tell me about that particular part of your career. I think that's where tornadoes came in, isn't it?
It was. So 31 Squadron was when I hit the tornado front line, as it were. So I'd already come all the way through flying training. I'd gone through the operational conversion units up at Lossiemouth on 15 Squadron. And then absolutely got to that point in my career where the training never stops, but the training pipeline effectively stopped. And I got to focus on what we do on the front line whilst continuing to train. So I had an incredible time on 31. We were called the Gold Stars. The men and women who were on the squadron with me, I'm still lifelong friends with many of them. And it was just a fantastic opportunity where everybody was there for the same goal, and we were all working incredibly hard together. We all went around the world. We went on operations. I've served out in Afghanistan, and we all went to all those places together and experienced all of those hardships together as well. And that really bonded everybody. And then on top of that was the role that the Tornado used to do, especially out on operations where the key thing that we were doing was supporting the men and women who were on the ground.
Are there any examples or stories that you can share from Afghanistan that give us a sense of what your role involved?
One of the really clear memories that I have for Afghanistan was it was a very early sortie. In fact, I think it might have been my first or second trip. And we were walking out to the jets and we were called, it was a go, 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 because there was a troops in contact situation. And so we arrived in the area. I was on the wing of my wingman. He was more experienced. He was from the squadron that were about to leave. And I was on the squadron that had just arrived. And so read into the situation. We talked about what was going on. And then one of the first things that we do in those situations is what's called a show of force. And that is flying very low, very loud, over the top of anyone you want to bring attention to in a, this is us and we're over the top. And I got the call of, yep, you're going down. And so myself and my navigator ran through all the checks and dropped down. And I just remember all of that training in the back of my head, everything that was spoken about, and the adrenaline was pumping. And it was then the navigator was putting into the kit where we needed to go so that we could make sure that we're doing our show of force in the correct location. And then at that point, it is about flying the aircraft accurately to make sure we're going over the right place, flying the aircraft safely. And we went down, it was a valley, and then went over the top, climbed up, and they got the feedback that that had been successful and that the fire that was being taken had started to disperse, at which point started breathing again. And that was the introduction.
Wow. And do you ever really get used to that? If that was your first experience of that show of force, is it always absolutely adrenaline fueled as you do other things on the front line?
I think there's always an element because you train and you train and you train so that when that adrenaline is there, you're operating within that zone. But I think anything, when you're doing something of utmost importance, your body is going to be heightened to what's going around you. And I think that's a natural thing that I think anyone would experience.
As a bond between you and your navigator in a tornado must be extraordinarily close.
Yes, you spend a lot of time with your navigator. Sometimes you rotate round. Sometimes you stay as the same crew. My second Afghan tour, I flew with the same navigator for the majority of the time, and we're still very good friends today. You learn to work together, and this is one of the reasons I enjoyed the pilot-navigator teamwork so much, is that you get to the point where you don't have to ask each other for what you need to happen next because you're so in tune that it starts happening. And it's this really almost beautiful level of synergy that happens. And you see it, you see in high-performing teams. The Red Arrows are a beautiful example of that, where just that teamwork really clicks in. And that was really fulfilling for me.
And how did you feel? You knew from the beginning that your role would involve frontline duties, but how did Sasha inside feel about the fact that at some point you'd be on the front line and how you balance risk as well?
So when you join the military, you're aware of what you're joining and why you're joining it. And that's something that was taken all the way through training. And actually getting to the front line was more of a point of all of those years of training. And it was 6 years of training. And actually, you've now made it to the point where I'm essentially doing the output. And everything that you've trained to do comes into one part.
And what did you love about flying the Tornado? I mean, most of us, well, I don't think anybody really listening to this podcast, unless there are any Tornado pilots listening, will have stepped inside a Tornado. What is it like as an aircraft and how fond are you?
Very fond. She was a fantastic aircraft, very good at what was required in the role that she did. You had to be very cognizant when you're flying her that you probably had to fly sometimes hot and high is what we call. So if the temperature's very hot or you're working in high conditions, then the way that you fly has to change slightly. And I enjoyed that because as pilots, we really enjoy that hands-on side of things. She's just a beautiful aircraft. She's iconic. Everybody knows about the Tornado. And So the GR4, because we had the variant of the F3 as well. By the time the GR4 went out of service, you had years and years of so many people who had been involved in the flying, the maintaining, the engineering, the ops, the int, that make this massive family, effectively, of people who have a real affection for the aircraft.
It sounds like the sort of flying you've done is a real privilege. And I know the Royal Air Force invests millions in people like you that they feel are right for the job. Is it a real privilege? And what kind of qualities do you think you need to become a fast jet pilot?
I definitely feel privileged every single day. In fact, I pinch myself to have been afforded the opportunities. And that's what the Royal Air Force gives, is those opportunities to be able to follow that path that you want to take. In terms of qualities, so I could probably liken it actually, because I instructed fast jet pilots coming through the training system. The qualities that we used to look for there were hardworking. It is hard work. And so they needed to have that commitment, that intrinsic motivation, the ability to self-analyze, the ability to be self-critical. In my opinion, within the aviation environment, you need people to be honest about who they are and what their abilities are, because that's the way, first of all, that you get better. That is also the way that you stay safe. And that is the way that you operate to an absolute optimum, when you can actually look inside yourself and analyze where those faults are that you need to look at when you're going through your training.
And that's also important here at the Red Arrows, isn't it? And there's always a debrief every time the jets are out in any form of training, the sorts of training now that's pre-season. The pilots criticize themselves, don't they? It's expected here, isn't it, that you pull out the things you've done wrong. And I suppose that's all part of a learning process, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the way we do it here at the Red Arrows is, in order to be able to demonstrate that teamwork and that precision and excellence, which is what we pride ourselves on, you have to look for those marginal gains, and you have to have that ability to see what you've done, interpret it, understand if it's not quite right, and then take that learning point forward. The debriefs that the pilots do is absolutely fascinating to listen to, because it actually sounds like you've got all the pilots in one room and they're all verbalizing what they are seeing from the tape as we are watching the video of the display. And each of those is both talking about where they are whilst also listening to everybody else, because sometimes one error might cause another error or be caused by another error. And so they're all listening to that. And it's testament to the absolute skill and expertise of the pilots on the team.
I suppose you're going through that display in minute detail. It says, of course, it's so important, isn't it? The margins of error somewhere like this are very small, aren't they?
Exactly. And when the team are putting together a world-class display, it is those little bits that make it world-class.
What does this season hold, Sasha, in terms of your world-class display?
We're actually waiting to find out at the moment. So the point of the year we're at the moment is we're in winter training, and the ratification of the program for the summer is in process at the moment. And it's something within the next couple of months that will be finally formalized, at which point we announce what we're going to do. Then we go and do it. We do the final part of our winter training on exercise Springhawk, where we go overseas to find it's warmer weather and clearer skies. And as you all know, the last 3 months in the UK hasn't quite had that, which is why we take that opportunity. And then at the end of that, that's where everything is solidified and we go straight into the display season.
And of course, your role is quite different to your previous roles here. What are you most looking forward to?
So as the officer commanding, I have the real privilege of doing a range of roles. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to over the display season is actually getting out and about and getting to meet people. And I'm very lucky because I get to meet people ranging from 5-year-old school children who are coming to see a display to people involved in business, to VIPs, to our supporters out in the general public, and everything in between. And I said how I value people. So for me, the opportunity that I'm going to get to go out and about and meet such a wide variety of supporters is something I'm really looking forward to.
Just a final thought, you've also worked closely alongside the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Any real standout memories, Sasha, from your time working alongside those really vintage old aircraft?
It was a real privilege as part of my previous role to be able to work alongside the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. And that was for a number of reasons. Primarily the people on the flight, just a fantastic group of, I wouldn't say group of individuals because they are a family, and the way they work together, the opportunity to see and sit in and fly in some of the aircraft. For somebody who is so interested in aviation and also so interested in the history and the culture of the Royal Air Force, to then have that opportunity to go and sit in or go and fly one of their aircraft is a real privilege and something that's hard to put into words, because it is the culture and the heritage of everything that we do in the Air Force. I was lucky enough to meet a number of veterans, because the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight have a fantastic relationship with a number of veterans. And to have that opportunity to meet and to chat with them, it's absolutely astounding what they have done and been through, and just an honour to get the opportunity to actually meet them.
And it's so important, isn't it, that we keep those stories alive?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what BBMF do.
Well, it's been fantastic to meet you. Best of luck with your new job. I think you've got very exciting times ahead, and I hope we'll meet again in the not too distant future when the team are out displaying.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. You've been listening to Wing Commander Sasha Nash, the newly appointed Officer Commanding of the Red Arrows. You can see the Red Arrows all over Britain this season after their pre-season training finishes in May. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com, or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week, probably on terra firma, but with another great guest, so join me then.